What's going on, team? Proof here, and welcome to my deck guide series for Overdressed Set 1, Genesis of the 5 Greats. And instead of presenting a deck list and talking about it and then going into replays like I normally do, I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time. So I'm going to start with talking about the ride deck and then going over the overall goal of what it's accomplishing. And then after that, I'm going to talk about 3 key cards that are either important for the deck's function or cards that you want to look for in your hand post mulligan. After that, I'm going to go into the general overview of the deck. And then since this is more of a general overview, I want you to keep in mind that the gameplay of the deck can change depending on the matchups. And then I'm going to give a couple pros and cons. And finally, we'll finish things up with a sample deck to tie everything together. So I hope you stick around and I hope you enjoy. And the deck I have for you today is Hexaorb. Let's go and hop into it. And the entire goal of Hexaorb's ride deck is for that moment when you ride Hexaorb on top of Pentagleam, because it allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them to your liking and plan out your turn 3 better. Outside of that, Tier Square only really offers a card draw and doesn't really offer much outside of that. So the entire focal point is that turn 3 time. As for the key cards, we have Lepisto, Tartine, and Pentagleam. And Lepisto is your best rearguard attacker in the entire deck because she offers great payoff to your trigger manipulation, and then being able to restand and attack again with all the trigger manipulation you have going on makes her an ever-present threat. And then Tartine and Pentagleam offer really efficient ways to manipulate the top card of your deck. That way you'll always be prepared and ready for what's upcoming next. As for the gameplay overview, you want to manipulate the top card of your deck with your skills such as Tartine and Pentagleam. It increases your odds of seeing a drive trigger check, and it also allows you to find key pieces that you want to add to your hand and bluff that you might have a trigger on top. So for example, if you play Tartine, look at the top 2, put one on top and one on the bottom, and your opponent might think there's a trigger on top, but it's actually a Hexaorb that you can use to persona ride the next turn. Things like that can really manipulate how the game flows and the cards in your opponent's hand. Because if they defend against it thinking it's a trigger and it's not, then they wasted guard there, which they could have used later on. And then you want to beat your opponent down with your trigger synergy cards, and then also the fact that all of your triggers represent plus 20k power instead of plus 10k power really adds up over time. As for the pros, you have a lot of top deck manipulation for triggers and allows you to really plan your turns out. So you kind of really use that knowledge, and knowledge is power in this deck. And then with every trigger being an extra 10k power, it allows for great offensive swings. Maybe you want to stack the power on one rear guard instead of splitting it. That way you can make something much more threatening, or you can split it, or maybe you can even give it to Hexaorb's booster to hit over a 2 to pass. Things like that you really want to keep in mind as you're playing Hexaorb. As for the cons, it's really reliant on Persona Ride for the max value play of the triple drive, or to stack the card on top of the deck and have the triple drive. And the other con is that it can struggle in faster paced games. Hexaorb is a deck that really wants to see the game go longer and really see the value start to increase over the multiple trigger checks, the multiple manipulations, multiple persona rides, things of that nature. So that'll do it for the overview. Let's go ahead and get to the sample deck. As for the cards I didn't previously talk about, Fasado offers a great pressure piece to force cards out of the opponent's hand. Because of his ability to refund costs, and if your opponent guards it, it could potentially help attacks get through later. Refluke is a nice power up to Lepisto and Fasado on push turns, while giving a soul resource to your Soul Blast outlets. Hopeful Testudo is a nice defensive tool since the deck can easily have 3 units on the board, and allows you to potentially not use a crit to guard, so you can potentially stack it with Hexa in a future turn. Painkiller Angel is great early on to help you dig for your scry pieces, and Fasciata is there as a trigger payoff card that combos very nicely with Lepisto's Counterblast 2 skill, because it may help you enable a double Lepisto restand when you have 3 Counterblasts available. As for the triggers, there's 8 crit, 3 draw, 1 to Martinoa, and 4 heal. The 8 crit is for max Vanguard pressure and max odds to have a crit in hand for Hexa stacking. Using draws here instead of fronts because the additional draws can come in handy to find pieces in a pinch, but you're free to use the fronts if you want to try and stack them with Hexaorb's skill. So the sample deck is giving you a lot of various tools to try and see what you like, but it maximizes the scrying the deck is capable of to achieve the desirable payoff. So that'll do it for the deck guide on Hexaorb. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Peace. Be easy.
Listen.